Life was similar just a few hundred years ago. Our people did not worry about the next iPhone coming out or even how much money they will make. Rather, it was about survival. That was the only worry they had. With tens of millions of buffalo in North America, survival wasn't too difficult. The buffalo provided everything from food to tools. Even the home was made of buffalo. Hides were used for tipis, which created a mobile home for the Native American people, whose lives consisted of following the buffalo. This is why the tipi was life, and life was the tipi, constructed with lodge poles and bison hides, making it easy to set up while on the move. Each tribe, including the ones in Montana, had its own uniqueness when it came to the tipi. Montana is composed of 7 federal reservations with 11 tribes, as well as 1 state-recognized tribe. Too many people think Native Americans are one, but as we know, they are very diverse. Some tribes are even diverse within themselves. In Montana, most tribes lived in tipis for a majority of their time spent on the Great Plains. The first tribe I will address is the Blackfeet, or Nistapi, or real people. They call the tipi Nitois. The Blackfeet people would face their tipis to the east to welcome the morning sun every day. They would use a 4-pole base system when erecting the tipi. This allowed for a tall, large structure. They also would design their tipis with horizontal canvases cut in the back in order to make a more durable structure. Living on the east side of the Rocky Mountains, the wind gets harsh, especially up on the Blackfeet Reservation. Blackfoot tipis were famous for being painted. The images you see on them were brought to them by Papatiskapaski, the dream beings. Each one of these images has a meaning, and the location of these images also a meaning. The bottom of the tipi is Mother Earth and can be represented by mountains or even foothills, while the middle usually shows the animals who are spirit helpers to the tipi owners. The animals painted on the north side of the tipi are female, while the ones on the south side are male, while the upper part represents the stars and the night sky. The Blackfeet people took pride in their tipis and how they painted and looked. No design is ever the same, and the owners pass them down through the generations. The Crow, or Abzalaga, call the tipi Ashe, home, or Ashalate, real home. They received the tipi from yellow leggings. Most Crow tipis have 20 poles, with each one representing something. They also use a 4-pole base system in which the 4 poles have different meanings, such as the 4 seasons. The tipi is left white because it's not to be touched by anything bad or evil. Only in a few cases you see Crow tipis painted, in which they were instructed to in visions or dreams. The Crow historically used to use rocks to hold down their tipi. Today, they use stakes, in which they are gifted from Badger, and in his honor, Crow people will stripe their stakes like a badger. Like most tribes, the tipi was ruled by the women, and in Crow country, it was also ruled by the women. She owned the tipi, controlling the behaviors inside and out, which were to remain positive. Within the tipi, there was also order. In the back was the place of honor occupied by spiritual leaders, and by the door was the place of the brave in case of an emergency. Visitors were also always welcome inside, as the Crow believed it was impolite to knock or ask to enter another's tipi. The Northern Cheyenne, Tistai, Tistas, and So Tayo, known in Cheyenne as Northern Eaters, call the tipi Ve. It stands taller in the back than in the front because of the 3-pole base system the Cheyenne use. Using this 3-pole base system, the Northern Cheyenne create a gap at the top of their tipi because of how they lay the poles out. This gap is caused because of the tightness or neatness of the compact poles resting at the top. Also, with regards to the 3-pole base system, the Cheyenne have 2 poles in the back and 1 on the left side of the door as you enter facing the tipi. The Northern Cheyenne are also known by the size of their smoke flaps caused by the nesting of the poles. The flaps are longer and narrower and have a small curtain or free flaps at their bases. If the tipi is to stand for a long time, The poles are also sunk in as much as 18 inches into the ground. The Northern Cheyenne also differ from the Southern Cheyenne when it comes to the teepee. This is with the door. In the Northern Cheyenne teepee, it is oval shaped and raised off the ground because of snow in the winter, while the Southern Cheyenne completely forego this and leave it open at the bottom. Another way to spot a camp of Northern Cheyenne teepees is the circular windbreakers they made with sunflower stalks or willows and other brush-like posts bound with withes. The next tribes I will talk about share the Fort Peck Reservation. These are the Sioux Indians or Lakota, or the Assiniboine Indians, the Nakota. Both tribes inhabit the Fort Peck Reservation in the northeast corner of the state and have been governed themselves since 1871. When it came to the teepee, however, each tribe had their differences, even though both were from the Siouan area and spoke similar languages. The Assiniboines call their teepee Waikea, and in the English language they do not recognize the letter P. So you will see the Assiniboine people write teepee instead of teepee. They also have a very unique difference that sets them aside from almost every other tribe in the nation. That is when the Assiniboines set up their teepee, they face it to the south, with the reason for this being this is the direction their dead go when they join the spirit world. The Sioux people also have a uniqueness when it comes to the teepee. One being that the word teepee comes from the Sioux language, and this was one of the first plains tribes the Europeans came across when heading west. The Sioux used the word teepee, which is broken down ti, meaning to dwell or live, and pi, meaning used for. Thus the word means for living in, and it describes the Sioux teepee perfectly. The Sioux were also known for the beautiful decorations on their teepees, such as paintings and other decorations. One of these decorations was the teepee tinkler, which was one of the most beautiful decorations on teepees. Some bands of Sioux were often known based on the color of their tinklers and arrangement they had on their teepees, such as the Oglala Sioux were associated with red teepee tinklers when coming across their camp. On the Rocky Boy Reservation, the Chippewa and Cree people live. The Cree, or Neowog, people also use a 3-pole base for their teepee, with the door pole placed on the downwind side of the door. The teepee was also a bit smaller than other tribes in the region, making it easier for the Cree on the plains to move quickly. Again, the women were also in charge of the Cree teepee. The Cree teepee stood as a true cone rather than a tilted cone. This made the teepee more oval than circular. Cree tradition has it that the teepee poles represent fingers in a hand held in prayer. Each pole is given a meaning that also offers a teaching. The teepee would not be complete if a pole was missing, just like we would not be complete if a piece of us was missing. The poles were usually short and barely cleared the nest of the top of the teepee. If you were to see a painted Cree teepee, it was more common on the plains than anywhere else for the Cree. The Chippewa, or Anishinaabe, were very similar to the Cree, and this is why they assimilated well with each other. It is safe to say when Rocky Boy and his people were wandering through Montana that their band had similar teepees. Each teepee probably had characteristics of its own owner, as well as the owner's descendants, but also served its purpose of mobility on the Great Plains. The Chippewa, too, would paint their teepee, and the paintings would be based off a dream or gift from the spirit world. On the Flathead Reservation, we have the Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes. The Salish, Kepse, Pendoroil, or Xanka, or Kootenai people, all utilize the teepee as not only a home but a way of life. The Salish and Ponderay people were sister tribes who practiced many of the same traditions and language. The common word for teepee in their language was Sesketmix. In traditional times, the Salish and Ponderay women constructed, owned, and cared for the respected family's teepee. Normally, it would take 6 to 8 large hides and 17 poles to construct a standard family lodge. History indicates that other teepees took as many as 20 hides to construct, and if it were a chief or large family's lodge, even more. It was common for the teepees to face towards the camp's center unless they were isolated individual teepees, in which much of the time they would face east. The Kootenai people are a separate tribe who shared much of the same land as the Salish and Pend Oreille. The common Kootenai word for teepee is akitanam, which means a structure in which people live. Kootenai women were also responsible for the duties maintaining their teepee and household. In traditional times, hides were also used as the awning part of the teepee, along with a lodgepole pine for the poles. Instead of relying heavily on the buffalo, the Kootenai people also utilized elk hides in teepee construction. Teepees were made to be easily deconstructed and reconstructed for traveling purposes. Kootenai, Salish, and Pend Oreille people all treated their teepees with great care, and it was their home, a vital part of life. In recent history and modern times, most teepees are made out of canvas, which is much lighter and easier to transport. Teepees are still commonly used by many tribes today. Fort Belknap is home to the Gros Ventre, or Aani, which means white clay people, and the Assiniboine, or Nakota. The Assiniboine are very similar to that of their family members on the Fort Peck Reservation, with similar traditional and spiritual beliefs about the teepee and the process of setting up the teepee and any ceremonies involving the teepee. The Gros Ventre are, however, very similar to the Blackfoot when it comes to the teepee, with beliefs in painting teepees from their dreams or visions. This is because the Gros Ventre were in the Blackfoot Confederacy at one point, so it's very hard to distinguish Gros Ventre and Blackfoot teepees from one another. The one state-recognized tribe Montana has is the Little Shell Chippewa, who call the teepee Bayishka Oogan, which means a lodge with a pointed top. Throughout the late 1700s and 1800s, the Little Shell took to the plains to become a buffalo culture people, assimilating with the Cree and Assiniboine people. You can see many characteristics that relate to the respected tribes. The Little Shell are also known for the carts they pulled around. These carts would sometimes carry their teepees, even though they also used the travois to carry their teepees, and when they set up camp, it was in a circle, facing east. One thing that was for certain was that the teepee made life simpler for Native Americans on the plains. Today we still use them for ceremonies, and even camping. We, however, must never forget the purpose they served to our people just years ago.